I know Donald Trump is doing everything he possibly can to cover up his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but sometimes it feels like the opposite. Because these cover-ups, they're so blatant, they're so idiotic, they're so transparent that it only makes us pay attention even more. And the latest example of that, a midnight cover-up, Donald Trump quite literally removing and destroying Epstein evidence as people caught it on camera, might be the worst yet because it is illegal and incriminating. Yes, Donald Trump is in some deep shit that we are going to get into, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into how Donald Trump was caught on video destroying Epstein evidence illegally, I want to start with an important update on why he was destroying this specific bit of evidence, and that comes from Robert Garcia breaking down Donald Trump's connection with Alex Acosta.
Essentially, what Mr. Acosta was saying is that there wasn't enough evidence that he couldn't, that he even alluded that sometimes it was a different time, it was a different era, and that, victims wouldn't come forward or they didn't want to share their whole story, which we know is complete BS. Because the actual lead prosecutor on the case wanted a strong federal trial, wanted a strong federal prosecution, and had laid out this whole case in front of Mr. Acosta. I actually asked Mr. Acosta directly, I said, did you have faith in your lead prosecutor? Did you think your lead prosecutor was a good attorney, had a good reputation? And he admitted that, yes, that he thought that his whole team, including the lead prosecutor, were good lawyers, yet he would not take their advice. And so how do you go from this master prosecution that his team wanted to make to an 18-month sweetheart deal where essentially Epstein gets to leave every single day out of work release, not really serve that sentence, and then go on to rape more women and girls? And Mr. Acosta stood by that deal. He had no regret. He has no regrets about that 18-month BS sentence that Epstein got. And so we actually have a lot more questions, not just for Mr. Acosta, but for a lot of other folks involved as to why he decided to make this deal.
I continue to bring up the fact that we need to pay more and more attention to the Epstein associates, those ties that Epstein had all over the country, all over the world, because Donald Trump is working very hard to cover those up because he knows if someone like Alex Acosta starts talking, there's nothing he can do to stop him. It is why the DOJ blocked NBC News from getting the name of two Epstein associates who had been wired $100,000 and $250,000 respectively. They blocked NBC News from even getting the names because once you start to pull at that thread, it all unravels. And it's just like with the birthday book. Donald Trump couldn't prevent the Epstein estate from giving it over, and now it has blown up this scandal even more. That is why Donald Trump is so worried about the associates, and it's also why he's so worried about the special election that just happened in Arizona, because Mike Johnson has felt pretty good about blocking this discharge petition from Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna because it didn't yet have the votes. Now it does, and it's important before we get into the evidence that Donald Trump destroyed. Arizona Democrats win clinches bid to force Epstein files vote. A bipartisan group of lawmakers appears to have the support needed to force a House vote on a measure demanding that the Trump administration release its investigative files on the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Adelita Grijalva, a Democrat who on Tuesday won a special election for a House seat in Arizona, has committed to signing on to a so-called discharge petition that would force action on the measure. The petition needs signatures of a majority of the House, 218 members to succeed, and Ms. Grijalva is poised to be the 218th. Grijalva said that on her very first day in Congress, she would be signing the discharge petition. It is likely to take weeks for the measure, which is co-sponsored by Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, to come to a vote, and then the effort could falter if any Republicans, the three of which who said that they would sign on, withdrew their backing. But should none withdraw, Ms. Grijalva's signature would be all but certain to force Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican leaders to confront an issue that they have hoped to dispense with in the face of resistance from Donald Trump, sharp divisions within their ranks, and pressure from right-wing supporters. So this is a perfect storm of perfectly terrible news for Donald Trump as it relates to covering up the Epstein files. Not only is Congress getting deeper into this investigation, hearing testimony from Bill Barr, from Alex Acosta, now on the verge of having the Epstein files and their release come to a vote on the floor of the House, which would not only screw over Donald Trump when they were released, but we could hold that against every Republican who voted no. Donald Trump is also facing new forms of public pressure outside of the Capitol, actually in front of the Capitol, which he got caught destroying, and I want to get into it. Trump's goons topple 12-foot statue of him and Epstein. A towering 12-foot statue of Donald Trump and convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein holding hands mysteriously appeared on the Capitol Mall early Tuesday. By sunrise Wednesday, it had vanished. The United States Park Police quietly removed the provocative bronze sculpture around 5:30 a.m., according to footage obtained by the Daily Beast. The removal violates a permit issued by the U.S. Department of Interior to the Secret Handshake, the group that claimed responsibility for the installation. The statue was authorized to remain on display across from the Capitol on 3rd Street between Madison and Jefferson Avenues until Sunday at 8 p.m., documents reviewed by the Daily Beast reveal. The DOI is also required to notify the artist at least 24 hours before the statue is removed for any reason. In a statement to the Daily Beast, an Interior spokesperson said the statue was removed because it was not compliant with the permit issued, which is probably a lie because they didn't further elaborate. The White House denied to comment on the statue's removal and referred the Daily Beast to the DOI for comment. A spokesperson for the Secret Handshake called the statue's removal a literal example of the Trump administration toppling free speech when it has been legally permitted and approved because they are scared about whatever Trump is hiding in the Epstein files. We found out at the end of the day that some people within the Parks Department, aka most likely the Trump administration, were trying to find ways to say we were not in compliance, the spokesperson said. We were then told everything is okay and that if the administration decided to remove it, we would have 24 hours notice to take it down ourselves. Instead, they showed up in the middle of the night without notice and physically toppled the statue, broke it, destroying it, and took it away. The statue's current whereabouts are unknown, according to the group. Before its removal, the installation featured several plaques highlighting Trump's relationship with Epstein, who died by suicide in Manhattan jail in 2019. In honor of Friendship Month, we celebrate the long-lasting bond between Donald Trump and his closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein, one plaque reads. In the middle of the night, they broke, removed, destroyed, and are now hiding the evidence of Donald and Jeffrey's friendship. I wonder why. But doesn't Donald Trump love free speech? Isn't that so weird? That's not like Mr. Trump. That's not like dear leader Trump. He would never do that. Oh, Donald, you would, oh, no, okay. Oh, I'm getting word. One sec. I'm getting him. Oh, ooh. He would do exactly that. I just got a text. That's exactly that's exactly what Donald Trump would do. Of course it is. Of course he is always going to cover up and try to hide when people are talking about Epstein. He's constantly terrified. It was so underreported, and that's why we have this show, that on the night that Jimmy Kimmel was taken off air, he was about to do a brutal Epstein monologue. Now, is that the only reason? No, of course not. Donald Trump is just a petty little bitch, and he's a whiny little baby. And so, of course, he was going to go after Jimmy Kimmel for simply telling jokes because we legalized comedy? ? I guess not. But this is so important. I don't want to say everything is related to Epstein because there's a lot of stuff that Donald Trump does just because he wants to expand his authoritarian powers. But you better believe every step in expanding his authoritarian powers also helps Donald Trump try to cover up his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the single most damaging issue for him right now. And of course we should continue to talk about this, and I'm glad. That's why Jasmine Crockett has been keeping that pedal to the metal and was talking more about how he opened the show, Donald Trump's relationship with Alex Acosta, who gave Epstein that sweetheart deal, and why he did so. I think it's important.
Tell me, were you able to press Acosta on why he gave Epstein what a lot of people think was a sweetheart deal?
Yeah, so I was trying. But obviously there were a lot of members in the room as well as a number of attorneys for both sides. And so I probably could have sat with him alone myself and Doug for days. But I specifically was also listening to him. So at one point in time, he was talking about they were basically gauging the strength of their case, which is not abnormal. That is what prosecutors are always going to do. And basically he said as a team, they came to the conclusion that the case was just too weak and it would be better if they had a guarantee of getting him into prison as well as being able to make sure that he was going to be a registered sex offender. They did say they did not know about the work release, or he said he didn't know about the work release and that wasn't part of the agreement. He says that, he also, well, let me back up. I basically wanted to know, why is it that the case was weak in your opinion? He said that he felt like there were going to be impeachment issues with the witnesses.
That the witnesses weren't credible.
And so then I was saying, tell me what the impeachment issues were going to be. Because it's one thing to throw it out there. It's another thing when I'm breaking it down to you, because I understand what is impeachable and what's not. And so he's like, well, some of them didn't want to testify. I said, well, that's not impeachment evidence at all. And has there ever been a situation where you've brought a witness forward who did not want to testify? What other evidence was there? And if you felt like the case was weak, and most of us have rules where if you've got a statement from a witness and because of fear, maybe because of threats, because he said some of them were fearful, some of them allegedly had been threatened, all kinds of different reasons, man, there's ways to work around this. I say, let me tell you something. I have tried these cases on the other side, and I can tell you that we have had people come forward with hardly any evidence, because we have what we call a one witness rule in this country, which says that if you believe this one witness beyond a reasonable doubt, then that is enough.
Right.
And it really comes because of sex cases, because a lot of times who else can testify about what happened in that room? So I was really getting at him, and he said, well, 2006 was a different time. It was a lot different as it relates to the movement and what was going on. I said, let me tell you something. I've been practicing law since 2006, so I know what was happening in 2006. Right. So I was really ready to tear in and really get down to some other things because I've dealt with child sex cases. And based on the little information that I know about what he had back then, in my opinion, he had more than enough evidence, but he was arguing that he didn't. And
there is so much to unpack here, and I'm glad Jasmine Crockett is the one doing it. But what is clear is that Donald Trump likes to keep those who are close to Epstein close to him. There was a lot of overlap, not just in friends and associates, business partners, but of course, other individuals, if you know where I'm going with this. And that's not just scary and disturbing, it's disgusting, obviously, but it needs further investigation. Looks like that's getting closer to happening every single day, and we're going to keep you updated on that on this show. If you want to support that, because this is good news. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you want to support the show in another way, you can become a subscriber to my Substack. It'll be linked below. You can also click right here. Becoming a free or paid subscriber, one of the best ways to support the show. I've really appreciated everyone who has done so. Keep on fighting. Don't let them silence you. Don't let them tear down your statues. Making fun of Donald Trump. And until next time, I'll see you soon.